Good afternoon, everyone. So glad you've chosen to join us this afternoon, and we do hope that you will have a good time with us and that you'll learn some wonderful tools in being able to live healthier lives. And so I'm going to ask if we can just bow our heads as we have an opening prayer. Gracious Father in heaven, we thank you so much that we can gather here together on this Saturday afternoon and learn about how we can live better lives. And Father, we just pray that your Holy Spirit will be present with us as you instruct us, and that we can see the principles that you desire to instill in our lives, that we may be good, healthy, lovable, enjoyable people that are thriving in this world because we follow the counsels that you give us. So please bless us now, Father, is our prayer in your name. Amen.
I want to join Sean in giving you all a warm welcome. I'm excited you're here. Anyone else excited to be here? That's good. It's a blessing to be. And the fact that you are here means that you're wanting to make a commitment and do something. And I think that's important with life. You know, I have some friends who live in Oklahoma who run a farm. And they called their farm Better Together Farm. And I really like that because when you try and do something by yourself, it can be hard sometimes, right? But when you're together, and the Bible talks about the iron sharpens iron, so when we're together, and it also talks about how if it's one person and an enemy comes, they can kind of be overcome. But if there's two people, you can have the strength in numbers and coming together. So we are looking to come together and help each other, because in the journey of health and wellness, all of you are going to become a health coach. You might not have thought that when you came here, but as we help each other and encourage each other and come alongside each other, you're going to be a blessing to somebody else. And I think that's a really important thing. So I wanted to just give a few parameters of kind of where we're going with this. All of you have come from different paths of life, right? Everyone has a different past. You have different genes. You have different experiences, and there's things in that of your makeup that you can't personally change. But we're going to be looking at what the things that we do have control of, how we can and make good changes with those. And also, we don't want to be judgmental, because we don't know. You know, I remember I grew up in England, and one of the books that I had to read for English literature was a book called To Kill a Mockingbird. And in there, it talks a lot about until you walk in someone else's shoes, that you can't have an understanding of where they've come from. So as we're together, we don't want to be judgmental. We don't want to be critical. We're here to be encouraging and uplifting of each other. And, you know, wellness, it's a journey, right? All of us, we're on a path, and we're working and striving to move forward. And that's true whether that's emotionally or physically or spiritually. We're on a journey, and we want to be headed in a better and upward path. So we're here to help each other with that. You know, we're going to be talking about, it was called a 40-day health challenge, and that is we want to encourage each of you to be able to think of something that you would like to improve in your life. And we're not kind of prescriptive here saying this is what you have to choose. It's up to you. And we're going to encourage you in that pathway. But, you know, whether that's something in, you know, your physical health that you want to, whether it's some spiritual goal or mental goal, there's, you know, emotional, there's lots of areas that, and depending on your experience and your past and your goals. So we're going to be in part of our process. Each week we'll have a prayer and an introduction. We're going to have some different speakers. And after that, we're going to have a small group time where we'll have our plant-based meal. And during that time also, we're going to be looking, and today starting to explore what you might choose as a goal. And then we're going to be encouraging each other, checking in how we're doing with those goals. And for any of you that have made plans of what you want to do in the future, I presume I'm not alone that saying that's not always easy, right? Sometimes it's challenging. So having people come along and be part of that journey with you, I think, is going to be a real blessing, and I'm looking forward to that. But in your manual there, if you want to turn in there, there's a page, and I forget what page it's on, but it talks about SMART goals. And in your small group, you'll be looking again at those, but when you're making our goals, maybe, Sean, when you find that, I can borrow that from you. Keep going. There you go, yeah. It looks like this. And I just wanted to, if you've all maybe...
Page 5 or something like that?
Yeah, I should have put numbers on those pages. But just... There you go. It says setting SMART goals. And I just wanted to quickly go through this, and it's something that in your small groups you can go over again. But when we're setting a goal, if you set a goal that's not very specific, it's kind of hard to keep track of your progress. So we want to find something that's specific, and we want to be realistic. We've all probably made outlandish goals for ourselves that aren't reasonable for us to accomplish. So we want to be choosing something that is attainable, and then something that is a way that we can be able to measure how we're doing. I guess the attainable would be in the achievable category there. We want it to be relevant to us, because we all come from, if I just said, okay, this is it has to be a personal goal, because it needs to relate to who you are and where you've been and what your experience is. And you're the only one that can say, okay, I think this would be a relevant goal for me. And then, as we're going to be looking during our time here, the purpose, one of the differences between, there's lots of different programs for helping people, but when you realize that with God, in the Bible it tells us all things are possible. So if we come alongside and we're making a goal that relates to our true purpose, and that is to be someone who loves other people and loves God, that He will help us find a goal that's true to the purpose of loving God and loving other people and being a better person to help other people. So I just wanted to go through those. And then if you look, the next few pages, we really believe that the spiritual and the physical come together, and that one is going to help the other, just trying that they interact with each other. And so, for those of you, I don't know where you've come from as far as biblically or what knowledge you have from the Bible, but the Bible, it talks about a great controversy between Satan's accusations of God. And then in the Bible, it's filled with stories of different individuals who lived during that great controversy. And the Bible is very realistic about their errors, how they fell, what they did. It's not just a picture of all the good things. And so we have a variety of readings, one for every day of the 40 days, where you can read a little story. And in here it has, you'll see there's a Bible verse or two, or maybe three for each day. And it's gives a big picture. The first one just talking more about that overall framework of the Bible, and then specific stories, and then the questions pretty much the same every day of what we can learn from that, how you relate to it. And so obviously we're not mandating you have to do this. We're encouraging, because we think it's really a good thing to bring the spiritual along with the physical. But then in your small group, you'll have time to maybe just talk about those and discuss responses. If you have questions or things you weren't sure about, we'll spend some time looking and talking about those as well. Let's see, what else did I have on my... During each presentation, so if you come up with an overall goal of what you'd like to achieve, there will also be smaller goals or things that you can add on from each of the presentations. You'll find in there's a list of a goal that might relate to the presentation that you've just listened to. And so there's smaller other goals that you might feel convicted or decide that's something you'd like to try and incorporate in your own experienced in own life, and whether that's for 40 days or hopefully it's something that you can maintain for your greater health. And then we want you to have fun and we want to get to know each other and be a blessing to each other. And so we're just grateful for the opportunity. You know, you can plan some things, but if no one shows up, it's not so fun. So we're really grateful that each of you are here this afternoon, and we look forward to working together with each other and helping each other and coming alongside each other. One other thing, one moment. The last thought I had is, you know, we're wanting greater health and wellness, but we know that we live in a world of challenges, and not until Jesus comes will we have the ultimate health. But I wanted to read from 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 16 to 18, where it talks about, this is Paul, he says, "For which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day." So sometimes things happen in life, and even our best things physically, we cannot solve that. But if we have Jesus in our life, he promises that we can grow and we can have hope and a future that God wants to give us eternally. So we are looking forward to that. So does anyone have any initial questions? If not, yes, Terry. There are questions.
We're reading or to read.
There's the readings,
Okay.
and then at the bottom of the page, just some reflection questions, just you can read just to help you maybe take away some things personally from the things that you read each day.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's something that hopefully can help you learn and grow and give us something to talk about as we come together in our small groups. So, anybody else? If not, this week we are blessed. We have two presentations. We have Pastor Sean, who's going to give our first presentation, and his is going to be on choosing that covenant relationship with God. We just believe very strongly that the spiritual side of it is really important in helping attain our other spiritual or physical goals. And then after that, Dr. John Torquato is going to talk about optimizing the environment inputs. You know, we're all in a world surrounded with all sorts of things. There's some things that we, as I said earlier, we can't control, but there's a lot of things that we do have some control over, and Dr. John will be giving us some insights on some of the choices that we can make. So, Pastor Sean, we're going to turn the time over to you. I think each of them has a PowerPoint, so we're just going to take a moment to get those set up, and then we'll move forward. And then once they are both done, then we're going to be dividing. Matt is going to divide us up into our small groups, and at that time we'll divide, and we'll get to know each other, and we'll get a plant-based, small, simple meal served to us. So thank you very much. Thank you, Sean.
Well, it's nice to be with you. Is the presentation on? There we go. Choosing a covenant relationship. We may not necessarily use the word covenant in a great deal in today's society, but this is a very specific word, and as we think about the word covenant, we may be a little bit concerned, and you may be asking the question, well, why should I have a covenant? Why should I choose a covenant relationship? Most people may think of a covenant in a negative context. They think about rules being imposed, laws, obedience. It may apply a great deal of pressure upon your life. It's like, I have enough pressure. I don't need more pressure. So I'm a little bit concerned about this covenant idea. But when we think about why choosing a covenant, we recognize that a covenant is an agreement between two people. And what is really beautiful that we're going to see through this presentation is that the picture we see of God in relationship to a covenant gives us a picture of a God who is concerned about us, who is worried about us, who loves us, who just wants the best for us. And we're going to unpack a little bit about that this afternoon, and then we'll see how God has other things planned for us in this covenant journey that we embark upon. So, a covenant, you could read it as a history, or you could read it as His story. So the covenant that we're going to unpack here is about the story of who God is. It is a story of a cosmic battle that goes on. It is the most amazing history or His story that has ever been told. And we are going to journey, and then through this journey kind of figure out to ourselves, how am I going to respond? But one of the challenges that we think about God is, the Bible tells us that God is love. Now, I will say this, that some people will have a slightly different view of God from how they have grown up. And so you may say, well, what God are you referring to? When I speak about God as being love, I'm referring to the biblical view of who God is, because we read in 1 John 4 verse 16, it says here, and so we know and rely on the love of God has for us. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God and God in him. And so the Bible points out to us that God is love. And then 1 John 4, 7 through 9 says, Beloved, let us love one another, for God is love, and everyone who loves him is born of God and knows God. And then we have 1 Corinthians 13, that wonderful biblical chapter about what love is. And so the love that we're going to see about who God is Him reaching out to us, wanting to enter into a covenantal relationship. And the incredible thing about this covenant relationship is God says, I know that you and myself, Sean, will not be able to measure up to this covenant. I know that as people you can't. And so I will do everything on your behalf. I will empower you to make the right choices. If you just choose me, I will give you the strength to make the right relationships. And so this is the incredible story about God, because very often when we enter into a relationship with somebody, it's you have to do your part, whether you can or cannot, and I have to do my part, whether I can or cannot. And I'm not going to help you do yours, and you're not going to help me do mine. But God says, I'm going to do everything for you. I'm going to empower you. I'm going to direct you. I'm going to give you the freedom to choose. And so that's why we have this idea of, are we going to choose this covenant story? So I have a little video that I'm going to play about this idea of God is love. So as we think about God is love, the question that we pose or ask ourselves is, what did God do? What did God do? In other words, what did love do? And so here we go. In the very beginning, it was very good. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female. He created them. Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. So here we have the beginnings of our planet, of our race, and that we also read throughout the story of Genesis, days 1 through 5, everything was good, good, good. So when God created everything, everything was perfect. There was nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. And the incredible thing is, on day 6, he creates us in his image. And then at the end of that verse, it says, and it was good. And so everything was created well, and we have mankind. And it says that God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. The opening passages of the Bible set out man's origin. It sets out where we come from, in what image are we made, and it also gives us a purpose in life. Because very often we struggle with a direction. We don't know where we want to go. And so in the end, we kind of like just everywhere and we have no direction. But God gives us a purpose. He gives us a responsibility. And he says, you have been made as an intelligent being. And so he also gives us the freedom of choice on how to respond. And that's why it's posed as choose a covenant. Why choose a covenant relationship with God? Well, I believe most importantly is because God created me. And God has given me a purpose. If I don't have a creator and if I don't have a purpose, I just wander aimlessly around on this planet. But because God created me, because I have a purpose, I can choose a relationship with God that will give me a direction for the rest of my life. So, in the beginning, when we were first made, we were physically and spiritually whole. We read in Genesis chapter 2 and verse 7, it says, in the beginning, God formed man out of the dust of the earth and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. So when God breathes into me, when man became a living being, we were perfect. There was nothing wrong with us. And now today, everything's wrong with us. I can't control my sleep. I can't control what I eat. I can't control my mouth. Everything seems to be just gone awry. But God created us perfectly, physically and spiritually well. So I want to pause just a few moments here as we look at this idea of being physically perfect and spiritually perfect. And I'm sure many of us would desire to be physically perfect, to be able to do everything that we desire to do, to be spiritually well, to be able to trust God in every situation that we encounter and not to lean upon our own understanding. So here's some definitions that I'd like you to think about. Health. It is a state of being free from illness or injury. So if you're healthy, you're not injured, and you have no illnesses. Wellness, the state of being in good health, especially as an actively pursued goal. And then we have wholeness, the state of forming a complete and harmonious whole, unity, the state of being unbroken or undamaged, good physical or mental health. That's what wellness or wholeness speaks about. But this would be, if you please, a secular mindset, a secular reasoning. But the question that we might want to pose, if we're saying that our spiritual wellness with God is preeminent, and is the foundation upon what all the other wellness concepts that we're going to learn about are built upon, what is the biblical definition for wellness? And so a biblical definition for wellness is, beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in good health just as your soul prospers. So what is John chapter or 3 John 1:2 telling us? It's telling us, I pray that you may prosper, that you may do well in life. That you may do well, that you will be healthy, that your physical body will be able to do the things that you desire to do it, that you will not have illnesses and physical ailments and all those other types of things. And then it says, I hope that your soul prospers. In other words, I hope that your spiritual journey with God is good. And so that's a biblical foundation for what wellness is all about. And so it speaks about a complete wellness, a physical and a spiritual. Then those two equal an eternal wellness, where you know that you have a future and a hope despite what we encounter on this planet. But we are all broken and we all struggle, right? And I wish that weren't the case. If God created everything perfect and if God is love, why do we experience the brokenness in our life? And that's a real question that many people face. But the reality is the brokenness that we face is not as a result of what God has done. We read in Revelation chapter 12, verse 7 through 9, it says, and war broke out in heaven, where perfection is, where God is. So a war broke out there in heaven. Michael, being Jesus, and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought, but they did not prevail, nor was a place found for them in heaven any longer. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And so the Bible explains to us that the origin of war, that the origin of conflict, that the origin of sin and sadness and sickness and struggles and all those types of things is as a result of a war that started out in heaven that is now being waged on this planet. And so the Bible says Lucifer, or Satan, a fallen angel, has now entered into this world, and he is the enemy of God, and he afflicts us with hardships and with difficulties. It says, now the serpent was more cunning than the beasts of the field. So we just read, who was the serpent who caused war in heaven? Satan, the devil. And then we read, a serpent is in the Garden of Eden. Same creature. Right? And it says here, now the serpent was more cunning than any of the beasts of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, has God indeed said to you, you shall not eat of every tree in the garden? And so here we have the war in heaven now taking part here on this planet. And he questions Eve, and he brings doubt into her mind with regards to what God has said. And so God is saying, I want you to choose a relationship with me. I want you to trust me. But Satan is throwing and casting doubt and saying, no, you can't believe and trust in God. And then we read, it says, yeah, the thief, Satan, does not come except to steal and to kill and to destroy. That is the mindset of who Satan is. He's a thief, he's a destroyer, and he does not desire any happiness or any pleasure for us. If he can cause more suffering for us, the more joy he has. And then we read in Matthew chapter 13 and verse 28, where Jesus tells the parable of the guy who sowed all the good seed. And then when the harvest came, there were all these wheats and tares that came up, and his disciples said, well, where did all these horrible things come? And he says, an enemy has done this. And so the reality is that we need to bear in mind that as you and I wrestle in these next 40 days to make positive choices in our life, we're going to struggle because Satan's going to make it difficult. So, what happened? What happened to our planet? We read in Genesis chapter 3, verse 4 and 6, and it says here, then the serpent said to the woman, you shall not surely die, for God knows that the day you eat that, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasing to the eye, and the tree was desirable to make one wise. So she took it and ate the fruit, and so she also gave to her husband, and with her, and he ate. And so why are we where we are today? We are where we are today because of this action that took place some 6,000 years ago. Adam and Eve made a choice to not trust God, but to trust themselves. And so we have the serpent, we have the fruit that Eve ate, and that has resulted in the fact that you and I are broken vessels. You and I are leaking. We cannot sustain our life. And so through this wellness program, we're going to learn about ways in which we can become better, not by our strength, but allowing God to fix us from our broken state. So Romans chapter 6 and verse 23 says the following: the wages of sin is death. So because Adam and Eve had chosen the fruit, and you and I are their descendants, we are also under the curse of this. The wages of sin is death. And other causes for sin is pain, suffering, illness. And so because we have chosen not to listen to God, the result of that is that you and I have struggles in life. And God says, I want to fix that. I want to give each and every one of you a tool to be able to live a healthier life, that you may be freed from some of your ailments. This is the third time that I'm participating in this particular wellness challenge, and I've had other people who have participated in it who have made choices to follow this covenantal program, and they have had remarkable benefits to their physical life. They've lost weight, they've lost some of the physical challenges that they've had, and so I'm telling you from personal experience from myself, this works. But you need to stick to it. If you don't stick to it, you kind of end up down the same rabbit hole. And so, how do we let God fix it? So, some of the challenges that we have is that the fact that you and I are very selfish. My sister said to my wife many years ago, you have made Sean less selfish. And so I'm still working on that. I'm still very selfish. But at least my sister can see in me that there's some change, and that's been due to a good wife. But the Bible tells us that we are selfish. It says here, for my people have committed two evils. One, they have forsaken me, that being God, the fountain of living waters. And two, hewn themselves cisterns, broken cisterns that hold no water. And the reality is, we are so selfish that we try and fix ourselves, and we try put things into our broken lives, our broken cisterns, in order to have a better life. We fill ourselves with the things that only you and I want. We have all these false gods and idols, and so we try and fix our life because we are broken, and so we try and take the pieces of our life and glue them together in order to live a better life. But the reality is, if we had to pour water into us, we will leak like a sieve because we can't hold anything. The gods that we have, the idols that we have, they don't offer any help to us. So what is the solution? Sickness is also comes from breaking God's created and natural or moral laws. We read in John chapter 5 verse 4, Jesus healed the paralytic, and then afterwards he said to him, found him in the temple, see, you have been made well, sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you. And so the challenge to us is, even though that we're broken, God says to, I will heal you, I will make you well, but you need to stay in that same trajectory. You should try your best not to deviate from those things. So broken relationship with God results from Satan, the fall, sin, selfishness, and following our own desires as opposed to God's desires, which are God's laws of love for our life. So, is there hope for healing, wellness, and to be made whole? The answer is yes. And so from the beginning, we read that from the beginning of time, Jesus, the author of life and wellness, made a covenant promise with God to put a plan of salvation together. And you can read about that in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 9, Titus 2, verse 1. And so Jesus fulfilled the covenant promise by giving his life an unconditional sacrifice, and now has earned the right to offer us the free choice, or the choice to be adopted back into a covenant relationship with him. And so you and I are now faced this afternoon of choosing whether we're going to be part of this sacrifice or part of his covenant relationship based upon what he has done for us. So before time began, salvation was in place. Jesus knew what he needed to do in order to bring healing and change. So before time began, he had chosen to save us. He was going to do this. He was going to give us the ability for healing and for change in our life, and he was going to make things new forever. And so I want us to realize something, that when we chose not to believe in God, Jesus still said, I'm going to come and save you. But I'm going to come and save you, but I'm also going to give you help. I'm going to give you a new life. I'm going to heal what is broken in you. And I'm going to give you the promise that the ailments and the troubles that you face will not last forever. A time will come where you will live in perfect harmony with God. The thief does not come except to steal and to destroy, but says, I, Jesus, have come that they may have life and that they may have it more abundantly. If we think about our lives, many of us are struggling to make sense of our lives. Many are struggling to live a full life. But Jesus says in John chapter 10:10, I want you to have an abundant life. I want you to be full of energy and joy and happiness. I don't want you just to be slouching around and struggling and mentally depressed. No, Jesus says, I want you to have the fullness of life. And this I want to give you. And part of that is experiencing this covenant relationship that God has for us. So in order to live an abundant life, it means to live in balance. It means to live by the abundant principles that God has given for us. Jesus came as a fulfillment of God's promise. And Jesus now demonstrates his continual promise as he acts in our life. So what has happened? In the beginning, God created. The top line on the slide over there. God created the world. It was perfect. And then there was war in heaven. And after the war in heaven took place, there was Satan was cast down. And then he tempted Adam and Eve. And Adam and Eve fell. And then there was sin, disease, selfishness, self-exaltation, immorality, pain, suffering, pride, love, the power of it, degeneration, destruction, death, and Satan. So as a result of all this, we live now, but then there is the great controversy where you and I can choose a better life, where you and I can choose a different life. And so what is the different life? The different life is love, health, others-centeredness, service, forgiveness, morality, obedience, restoration, wellness, life, and Jesus. I don't know which one you want. Do I want diseases and selfishness and self-exaltation and pain and suffering? That sounds miserable. Or do I want health and love and service and forgiveness and morality? That just seems like a way better life than what the other one is. And so in order to have that, there is the fulfillment of what Jesus has promised. And we can live that now. And then there's the ultimate, the last picture on that slide, and that is final restoration, where there will be no more sin, where there will be no more disease, where we will live in peace and health forever. So, Jesus' ministry after his 40 days, he went into the wilderness and was tempted. And it says here, the Spirit of God is upon me because the Lord has anointed me to preach good tidings to the poor, to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prisons to those who are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord, and the day of vengeance of our God. So Jesus says, I have come to preach a message. It is a message to heal us. It is a message that proclaims liberty. In other words, without this message of Jesus, you and I are imprisoned. And so with this message, you and I are liberated. We are freed. Now, don't you want to be free? Don't you want to be free from the things that vex your life? From the temptations that hold you shackled? From the burdens that you face? From the life choices that we've made since we've been young that we are now addicted to and cannot escape? Jesus says, I can free you from that prison. I can give you a new life. Jesus, the covenant Messiah, is the one who enables all this. In the Bible, a covenant is a chosen relationship in which two parties make a binding promise to each other to work together in a common purpose, like a marriage. When God makes a covenant, He is always faithful to uphold His promise. And so He upholds His promise by the fact that He died on Calvary for us, so that our freedom from our prisons that we've made for ourselves, that we can be freed from those. Jesus sacrificed His life, and it's an amazing declaration of His love for us. So choose a covenant. Why choose a covenant? And here's a proposal number one: to save us from an eternal consequence of sin. That's one of the big first reasons why we choose a covenant relationship with God, so that we are saved from the eternal consequences, which is death. The Messiah shall be cut off, but not for Himself. Then He shall confirm a covenant with many. But He will be wounded for our transgressions. He will be bruised for our iniquities. And by His stripes we are healed. For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life. So why choose a covenant promise? The reason is because Jesus died for us, and through Him we are saved from this consequence of sin. So God's covenant proposal number two: He wants to heal us. He wants to change us. He wants to give us true purpose. But this is the covenant that I will make, says the Lord. I will put my law, God's character, God's principles of love and life in their minds and write on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. So the first one, God says, I want you to choose a covenant so that you can live eternally. And then second, He says, I want you to choose a covenant so that you may be well, that you may be healthy, that you may have a purpose in your life. And then finally, God's covenant proposal number three: to make all things new forever. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, nor sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. Then He who sat on the throne said, Behold, I will make all things new. Do you struggle with things in your life that cause you physical pain or hurt, or there's things that you want to do in your life but you just can't because your body just can't do it anymore? Jesus says, I will make you new. I'll give you a new body, that all the things that you desired to do, you will be able to do. So, we're broken vessels. We're those pieces of that little jar. But Jesus is the potter and we are the clay. We can be made whole. And so we can, like those pieces, be put together, but only through Jesus. And so the question is, why choose a covenant relationship with God? And I hope that through this presentation and in the weeks that lie ahead of it, you will realize, I will realize, that what God has planned for us is to give us a life of freedom and enjoyment. And I pray that that will be your choice. Choose a covenant relationship with God, because the benefits of that far outweigh not having that relationship. May God bless you as you listen to the next presentation and as you choose a covenant relationship with Him.
Thank you, Sean. I should have given you a little introduction. Pastor Sean Simplicio pastors this church and a church also in Post Falls. And as you listen to him, you maybe figured out he was not born in the United States of America. So where were you born, Sean?
South Africa.
South Africa. Yeah, so.
We share a similar heritage.
Yeah, I was born in England, so.
Yeah. So we have similarities.
So thank you for sharing with us. And I'm going to invite Dr. John up. While he gets set, I'm pretty sure he was born in the United States. And he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's a family physician. He has an office in Hayden and in Meade, Washington, correct?
That's correct.
And maybe he can give a little more information, but we're grateful that he was willing to come and share with us here this afternoon. Thank you, John.
You're welcome. Put this down here. Let me- Are we up? Yes. Great. Like was said, Dr. John Torquato, I'm a family practice physician. I have an office in Hayden, Idaho, and Meade, Washington. And I spend a lot of my time working with pastors and churches in the area that want to support their communities. Churches that are interested, pastors that are interested in supporting others, I am behind. And therefore, I'm here today because, as you see, they've decided to support the community in a 40-day wellness challenge. And I am excited to be here to be participating in that. Now, this is an opportunity for transformation. If you get into this and completely delve into it deeply, you'll see that you have the chance to transform yourself in these aspects of wellness that you'll be working on. This is interesting. My thing keeps going forward. So the whole concept of today's lecture or talk is how to optimize your environment and how to optimize your inputs. And when you talk about optimizing your environment and optimizing your input, I think about the blue zones. Some of you know about what the blue zones are. The blue zones are geographic regions around the world where people live exceptionally long and healthy lives. They're environments that make people live long. They're places where inputs happen where people live a long time. And the term was originally coined by a guy named Dan Buettner, and it was with the National Geographics that he was writing, and he's an explorer, and he identified these 5 blue zones. And we find that people that live in the blue zone environments share several common lifestyle characteristics that contribute to their longevity. Generally, they have a plant-based diet. They consume lots of fruits and veggies and whole grains and legumes, but they have a very low meat consumption. They limit their intake of processed meats and red meats. They have a low sugar intake. They avoid sugary drinks and processed foods that are high in sugar. They have regular physical activity. They engage in daily movement such as walking, gardening, or dancing. And that's places that tend to be very active culturally in a cultural environment. They have strong social connections, close ties with families and communities. There are studies that demonstrate that if you are socially isolated, you have poor health outcomes that are equivalent to as if you were smoking a half pack of cigarettes per day. And so these places have these strong social connections. Thus why today, when we're here at this program, this 40-day health challenge, we're going to try to encourage those social connections so that you don't have those risk factors that are equivalent to the half-pack cigarettes per day. There's also this sense of purpose. These people that live in these environments, they feel fulfilled. They have a reason to get up. There's motivation to be up in the morning. Now, we call that meaning, purpose. Now, meaning, purpose, and motivation in my work as a physician, we call these spiritual terms. There's a whole spirituality related to that. Some people are Christians, some people are not. But everybody has this sense of need for meaning, this sense of need for purpose. And when they have meaning and purpose, we're dealing with the spiritual side of life. One of the things that I've noted is that I can take care of people in 4 areas of life: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and social. And if I can help somebody make a physical change, what I recognize is if they do not address the issues of the mental, emotional, spiritual, and social implications of that physical change, they will not keep the physical change. And so this is another reason for this sense of purpose and belonging and working together towards a meaningful existence together. This is how we change our environment, both our inputs and the environment we're in. We become part of that environment that's benefiting and blessing others. In addition to that, they work and find ways to manage low stress, to keep their stresses low. They find ways to manage that stress, and they do it in a variety of ways. Now, where are the blue zones? The blue zones, there's 5 of them. There's Sardinia, Italy, that's an island. There's Okinawa, Japan, that's an island. There's Akaira, Greece, that's an area near the coast. And there's the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. Those are all areas that are near the water somehow. That's kind of interesting. But there's one place in all of North America. Now, notice these places are in Europe. There are places in South America, places here in Asia. They all have the cultural circumstances that help them to live to be 100 years old or better. That's the blue zones. But what about this area of the United States? What area is that makes people live to be 100 the most? Is it in the pristine areas near the coast? Is it in an area that has very little pollution? Is it a place that has low population? There is very little very little crime in the area? No, it's Loma Linda, California. It is in the armpit of America. We're talking an environment that is between the cities of San Bernardino, California, and Riverside. We're talking in the midst of the Inland Empire. It's not near the coast. So what is it about this place in Loma Linda that is the environment where people live to be 100 the most, as recognized by National Geographic? What is the issue about this location that makes the difference? What is the secret that helps people to live the longest? So, do you have to live in Loma Linda, California, in order to benefit from living in a blue zone environment? Is that what the deal is? What is the secret about the blue zones, this environment that's in the midst of all this smog, pollution, and population, but seems to go past this concept of this beautiful, pristine area that you would think it would have to be in order to live a long time? What did these people know, and what can I do to get it? That's what I want to know. What do they know, and what can I do to have that? And can you get the blue zone benefits right here in Spirit Lake, Idaho? Is that even possible? Well, today I want to give you this. I want to give you hope. I want to give you courage. I want you to see that there is a way for you to have the blue zones in your own life right here in Spirit Lake, Idaho. You don't need to be in California. But you have to know the secret. And I'm going to take the rest of my time to reveal to you the secret. And somehow I'm going to encapsulate that secret in just a few moments, and I'm going to show you what that is. So pay close attention to find the secret to the blue zones of Southern California in Loma Linda, California, which happens to be my medical school where I grew up and trained in medicine. Loma Linda residents that generally tend to live the longest know something called, catch this, the health message. They know about a thing that it's called the health message. Well, what is that? Well, before I tell you what it is, I want you to know that it affects a lot of things. It affects disease. It affects longevity. It affects people's happiness. It affects people's physical and mental performance. And it's also, the health message is also about helping other people do the same, getting the same benefit. Thus today, when you're here for this 40-day health challenge, it's not just about somebody providing something to the community. It's about you getting that, learning it, practicing it, and doing it for others. That's the key outreach. This is part of the deal. When you want to get better yourself, it's all about giving as well. There's another clue before I tell you all about the health message and this secret about Loma Linda, this blue zone in Southern California. There is a motto at Loma Linda, my medical school, that says, to make man whole. To make man whole. And that talks about what's in the health message. And that part of to make man whole means we are dealing with physical issues. We are dealing with mental, emotional issues. We are dealing with spiritual issues. We are dealing with the issues of the social ramifications of the health habits that we carry. Holistic medicine includes a spiritual dimension. It includes a social dimension. And this whole person approach is the envelopment of all of those four areas into one direction, one focus. Now the question is, all right, so Loma Linda does that, but does that holistic approach really make any sense? Well, a lot of people are asking that question. At Loma Linda, people that they have this holistic approach that includes spiritual life. Even Newsweek asked at one point, God and health. People want to know, is religion really good medicine? With studies like the Blue Zones showing there are great outcomes for a holistic approach to life, science is beginning to believe. The whole world is kind of wondering, how does this all fit? And so thus we have the challenge. How can we encapsulate the secrets of the Loma Linda Blue Zone, the health message, and whole person care in a very short presentation? How can you have the Blue Zone experience? Well, I'm going to share that with you now. And sometimes you just need a new start. A new start. In fact, that's a mnemonic that people that know the health message will use. And it's actually a place that makes a great place for SMART goals. We're talking about nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, rest, and trust. And when we talk about trust, we're talking about trust in our fellow man around us, in relationships. We're talking about trust in divine power with God. See, the holistic approach to the Blue Zones can be encapsulated in this New Start mnemonic. And so by using this, we can help ourselves understand the depth of what the Blue Zones, people that live to be 100 the most, what they're actually doing. So in the Loma Linda Blue Zone secret is all of these things combined. You have three main search terms. If you go to Google, you want to look up the health message. You want to look up whole person care. You want to look up New Start, because there is too much in just this short period of time to give you the depth of it for me to really do it any justice. But you have tools. You have potential to be able to go look at that material and find it for yourself. If you want some of that information, if you want to know about New Start, you can go to the site newstart.com/newstart-now, and there are whole videos on each of the sections of New Start. If you want information about whole person care and the health message, you can simply read the Bible. Look at Isaiah 58. My dad used to say, hey, you want to be successful? Find somebody who's successful and do what they do. If you want to go and find what is successful biblically, you go to Isaiah 58, you do what it says, and you will get the benefit that comes from the Bible. Doing what the Bible says is a blessing. And if you also want to know about this health message, you can go to a book called Ministry of Healing, and there are people in this room that you could ask about that know the health message, and they can help you get a copy of that book. And then once you learn details of this health message, it's up to you to share it. If you keep it in your own possession, it will rot. You must give it away. You must work with it and help other people get the benefit that you get, because without giving it away, you will not receive the blessing and the benefit. So the 40-day wellness challenge. What are the practical outcomes of implementing the health message? The whole person care principles that I've been talking about, the New Start principles. What are some practical outcomes that might happen? Well, the practical outcomes, some of the practical outcomes may be found in the reduction of disease, the improvement of the longevity and happiness, the improvement of physical and mental performance, and an opportunity to help others. So I'm just going to go through now and give a couple of those examples of ways that we can share how the health message might help people by helping other people. I'm going to share with you a study now, or a circumstance where a person had a very severe health problem, and where something was done in an environment, of medical environment, but there was more that was needed, because what this individual was going to try to accomplish was far more than he was capable of. It was far more than he could do. And what happened? There were people that knew the health message and understood the concept of whole person care and these New Start principles, and they actually reached out. People like those in this very room that are trying to do the very same thing with this program, the 40-Day Health Challenge, these people reached out into the community and they benefited this person so we could actually accomplish the goals. Now, before I go further, I'll tell you about this gentleman a little bit. This gentleman had 3 kidneys and 2 pancreases, and none of them worked. He had gone through multiple surgical procedures because he was a diabetic, which was out of control. He was at the point where he had to lose 35 pounds. He had been given a year to do this. He couldn't do it. And so now he was, every single day, because of his diabetes out of control, he was hungry to the point where he was just challenged. He was famished, and yet he had to lose weight. And when he didn't lose weight, he felt bad. He felt like he had been a failure. He recognized the hopelessness of the circumstance. Without 35 pounds of weight loss, he wasn't going to get a transplant. This man hadn't been able to urinate in a year and a half because his kidneys weren't functional. And now he was hopeless, and he's hungry. And now, because he's going through dialysis because he has no kidney to work, now he's got to keep on a fluid restriction. But he can't, because he's always thirsty. Because he's always thirsty, he slips a little water. And because he slips water, when he has dialysis 3 days a week, he has these huge fluid and electrolyte shifts that make him nauseated to his stomach. So now he is, number 1, hungry every single day. Number 2, he's thirsty every single day. Number 3, he's nauseated every other day. And number 4, he's hopeless because he doesn't believe he'll ever be able to lose the weight that he has in this man who's a diabetic. So I'm going to share with you his story, and I'm going to show you the outcome of an input that happens with people that are invested in the health message. So let me share this with you. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. I'm going to come off that for a minute. I have to change my audio.
I Dr. Torquato and decided to use him as my primary care physician. I was on dialysis. I had many health problems, including heart condition, bullous pemphigoid, high blood pressure, the whole gamut of different medical issues.
So the thing that he said to me that was the most moving in my heart, that made me want to reach out besides this clinical time that we had, when he explained to me how he was hungry all the time because of his diabetes, he was thirsty all the time because of his fluid restriction, he was sick all the time because of the huge fluid shifts that he had from his dialysis because he couldn't hold on to his fluid restriction, and now how he was hopeless that he would ever have a kidney transplant. He said, Dr. Torquato, I feel so hopeless. I feel like I'm going to die in dialysis. I have no hope. When he said that to me, my heart broke. And at that time, we knew that we had to do something more than we had the capacity to do in the short time we had in the clinic.
He looked at me and he said, Dale, he says, you've got an awful lot of good doctors around this area. I can help you by being your advocate. During this time of me trying to lose weight, my transplant clinic had talked to my nephrologist and suggested that I do gastric bypass. My nephrologist told the transplant team that he did not think that I would make it off the operating table if I went through gastric bypass. Dr. Torquato on that Friday afternoon stopped not only all of the staff that were working directly with him, but also got his partner and his staff to stop, and the whole entire staff of the office stopped and came in to pray with me and pray over me for God's will to be done during this fast.
When he was out in the community, the clinic staff and the church as a whole reached out into the community to find him and to support him and to give him the strength that he needed to accomplish the goals that he had set.
My doctor, Dr. Torquato, fasted the 83 hours along with me. Some of his office staff did it with us as well as my significant other fasted with me for the 83 hours as well. And the results were that I went from 276 pounds down to 232 pounds.
He had to lose 35 pounds. He lost 47. He lost more weight than he needed to. He went to talk to the transplant center. They didn't believe him. They weren't going to give him a transplant. They said, you need to keep it off for a year first, which he did. Using the same power that he had lost the weight with, he was able to use that power to keep it off.
I not only met their 255-pound limit, but I decreased that by more than 20 pounds, almost 30 pounds. Then I contacted Dr. Torquato. The next visit I had, he called my transplant coordinator nurse and told her that we were down to the BMI and lower of what they wanted. And the next time that I saw my transplant nephrologist, he asked me how I did it. And I told him that I did it through my primary care physician and God. Both of them helped me achieve the BMI goal that the transplant center wanted. And my nephrologist just looked at me and said, that's a story you have to tell.
Now he's taking this message of hope that he has and taking it to the rest of the world. He's talking to the hospital executives. He's talking to physicians. He's getting involved in hospital boards. He's talking to national physician organizations related to the kind of disease that he had issues with. This is the man who's trying to make the life of others better because his life was made better.
But now I'm also a ambassador for AAKP, which is American Association of Kidney Patients, and I take any speaking opportunities that they ask me to go on, and I go back to Washington, D.C. to talk to our politicians to try to cause policy change and legislation change for other kidney patients suffering with chronic kidney disease.
was one example, you guys. That was just one. But what about other opportunities? Is there any other place we can see the principles that we're talking about, the wellness, the whole issue about the health message and the ability to use whole person care and the New Start principles? Can you see these principles make a practical difference somewhere else in everybody's everyday life? Well, how about the Appleton Central Alternatives Charter School? This is a reform school that all the people that were acting out in the entire community, they got put into this reform school in this Appleton Central District, and these kids were problems. These kids were acting out. They had this difficulty in learning. And despite all the efforts of the staff, the kids always continued to act out in ways that made it difficult to teach them. The Appleton Central District, as well as a local business, they kind of ganged up and they decided, we're going to try to do one of the principles, nutrition, that are found in the New Start principles. They decided they're just going to do one. And they happened to do water, nutrition, water, and temperance, because before the school started, these kids would always gather and they'd be drinking sodas, not water. They'd be eating candy and chips, and they wouldn't have breakfast. And these kids would go into class like this, and you know what it's like on Halloween evening, when people have already been out and getting all kinds of candy. Kids are bouncing off the walls. And is it any surprise that in this reform school, that is what is happening? And so now you have this health message, these principles of New Start, this whole concept of whole person care they're going to try to implement on kids that are interrupting. They're losing their place in reading. They're listening poorly. They daydream. They have problems following directions. They're impulsive. They got tempers. They're storming out of classroom. They're using profanity. They're inappropriately commenting on things. This is the kind of kids that they're working with, and they're going to try to do these New Start principles. They're going to try to do the health message on these kids, so that one night, all they did was they stopped everything in the entire school that was outside of these principles. They took out all the soda machines. They replaced them with water machines. They took all the candy and chip machines out. They put them back with fruit machines. They changed the entire kitchen, and all they could do at that point is serve nutritious, healthful food that was based on a whole food, plant-based diet for a breakfast. And they were going to give them to these kids. What was the result of the very thing that you're going to be working with in this 40-day challenge? One component, the health message, whole person care, and New Start, was breakfast, which became this whole food, plant-based diet. They noted immediately that the kids' disruptive behavior and health complaints diminished substantially. The students seemed more able to concentrate. They were more emotionally stable, made it possible to deal with their mental health issues better and their anger management issues. In addition, it was overnight that they saw these outcomes. These kids that were previously impulsive and talking out and fidgeting and using foul language, they had less disciplinary referrals to the office. They had issues where the students previously couldn't settle down. They were now able to self-calm and do some of their coursework. And the biggest outcome was this. Excuse me. The biggest outcome that I would like to show you, I'm going to try that right here. This is the biggest outcome. This, where according to the principal, at the end of the year, they had to submit a state report. And at the end of the first year doing this, they found 0 reported incidents of vandalism, 0 drug violations, 0 weapons violations, 0 dropouts, 0 expulsions, and 0 suicide attempts. My friends, this works. When you have New Start principles and whole person care related to the health message, which you can learn about here, you will find it makes a difference. Imagine now if you had this to strengthen yourself and power your community. What could this do for you? So let's look at one more example before I finish, if I can get to it. I want to talk to you about this. So changing your nutrition and your environment. We're talking about optimizing your environment, your inputs and your environment. We're talking about, does it make a difference in practical life applications? Well, if the track record of this prison in California is any indication, a vegan diet and living according to New Start principles definitely can make a huge impact. In fact, it can even significantly alter whether or not people who were released from prison tend to come back. So let's look at what this talks about. The Victor Valley medium security correctional facility located in California was built by a Maranatha Private Corrections Limited Liability Company. Maranatha won the bid to build this private prison in the 90s when California was contracting out to private firms for the development of these privately owned penitentiaries due to the severe overcrowding of the prison system. And eventually this correctional facility was completed and there was an innovation that began. So let me try to get to this. It really doesn't want to cooperate with me, guys. I can really do this. This is very interesting. All right, I'm going to stop this. I'm just going to go into this. I hope you guys don't mind. I'm going to get out of here. Just go straight to my PowerPoint and show you in large terms, because I'm having a hard time with PowerPoint working, and show you in large terms. Let me just pull this out so you can see better. There you go. So let's go here and see if I can find my place, because there we go. Okay, so from the very beginning, the newly arriving inmates were given two choices. They could either reside on the side of the prison, which was built in two parts, where everything was exactly the same as every other prison operating under the standard California Department of Corrections guidelines and their meal plan, or they could go to the other side of the prison that embraced the principles of the New Start program. The actual program was actually given to a prison. And so what they found, this unique prison program, it featured exclusively a vegan diet. Bible studies, anger management, and job training. That's what these prisoners had to choose from. The New Start program was originally met with speculation at the state capitol, and they thought that nobody, even less than 1%, would probably choose a side with the vegan diet option. But the opposite was true. Over 85% of the inmates picked the New Start program over the regular living conditions. And not only did the prison become friendlier on the New Start side, it was a non-divisive environment in the prison yard where there wasn't a prison boss, there wasn't violence, and there wasn't the division amongst various ethnic groups. And the inmates actually played together in the common areas and became less aggressive. But more importantly, they discovered the percentage of former inmates that were later rearrested dropped to less than 2%. And that was compared to California's average rate at the time of 95% recidivism. So this is why I'm so encouraged by what you're doing tonight. This is an opportunity for transformation. You can optimize your environment. You can optimize your inputs. You have a way. You recognize, if you can learn about what the health message is, if you can recognize what it is to do whole person care that includes physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and social ramifications of your health. If you can understand these goals, these SMART goals of New Start methods, then you can actually find a way where there is hope, where you can have courage, that you can have an outcome that is like what you really want to accomplish. And so this is what I wanted to do today, is I wanted to bring you courage. I wanted to bring you hope that there was possibility you could make a difference in your own life, and you can do it through the things that you're learning here. Thank you.